but I would never put those two things together. But what I would put together is an introduction for our next speaker, who is Caroline Wilkinson. And she's online, and she's going to talk to us about bathymetry surveys in Prince William Sound. And I think we're there.
Are we seeing my screen here?
We are. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Caroline Wilkinson. I'm with NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's Office of Coast Survey. I apologize I can't be there in person today. I do live in Anchorage, Alaska, and my position is the navigation manager for Alaska. In that role for NOAA, I am responsible for all of the nautical charts and ocean floor mapping that goes on in Alaska. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about that, about the work that we do, and also about our organization in general a little bit. So NOAA is a large organization. You might have heard about it in a number of different ways. We have 6 different line offices. The National Ocean Service is the one that I'm part of. We do the ocean floor mapping, but also a lot of ocean chemistry and different investigations. The Office of Marine and Aviation Operations is responsible for NOAA's research vessels and their research aircraft. National Marine Fisheries Service, you might have heard of, aka NOAA Fisheries. They do stock assessment, catch limits, and also marine mammals. Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research does a lot of the modeling and data collection that supports hurricane predictions and large-scale ocean current modeling. The National Weather Service, of course, is a part of NOAA. And then we also have the National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, or NESDIS, which is responsible for the satellites that NOAA has with weather. We have a search and rescue mission as well. We are responsible for monitoring the EPIRBs, or personal beacons, and then we relay that information to the Coast Guard or National Guard. So we have a very wide mission. But specifically what Coast Survey does, the part of NOAA that I currently work for, is we map the ocean floor and we create these nautical charts. There's a couple of different agencies that have their hands in this. The Coast Guard maintains all of the aids to navigation. So all of the buoys, lights, channel markers, that's the Coast Guard's responsibility. The Army Corps of Engineers, they will survey and dredge maintained channels. So outside of Anchorage, there is a small run-up to the port of Alaska, and that is dredged and then surveyed by the Army Corps of Engineers. Every other part of the ocean is surveyed and charted by NOAA, and then NOAA is also responsible for compiling all of these different data sources from the Coast Guard, from the Army Corps of Engineers, into this nautical chart product. How do we do our mapping in Alaska? Largely with vessels right now. We have 2 survey vessels, the NOAA ship Rainier and the NOAA ship Fairweather, that operate regularly in Alaska. The NOAA ship Fairweather is in Kodiak right now and will be leaving in a little bit to head down to the Aleutian Islands to do some mapping out there. They also have missions in St. Matthew and surveying the Coast Guard designated port access route, so the corridor up and over the North Slope this year. We sometimes will use autonomous vehicles. We've used Sail Drone before to do some of our mapping mission, as well as the DRIX, which is the red autonomous vehicle that's pictured on the lower left. And what that looks like is we use sonar to, fun word, insonify or completely cover the ocean floor. It works much like echolocation. You have sound that bounces all out of the ship to the seafloor, bounces back, and we can use information about the speed of sound through water, information about the speed of sound through salt water of the specific salinity that we are currently in, to get a very accurate number for what the depth is of the ocean floor there. And a question when I speak about this that always comes up is about marine mammals and the risk to our charismatic megafauna, our favorite marine mammals. And so I just like to throw this in here. We have done our environmental impact statement, the research about what effect this sound might have on marine mammals, and we have found that the frequency that we use is above the hearing range of most marine mammals. And so it should not have any effect on marine mammals in that area. We also keep a close lookout, and if there are marine mammals in the area that we see, we will stop surveying, mostly just because the noise of the ship tends to be more disruptive to marine mammals than the sonar itself. So this is what our product ends up looking like. Nautical charts are no longer produced on paper. I'll talk a little more about that in a second. But we now have this electronic product, an ENC, or an electronic navigational chart. The brown is land, the green is a marshy area, and then blue is the ocean. The numbers here represent the depth in meters. And then you also have different symbols. You can see the little waves there that represent an area that might be choppy. You can see the green triangle in the center of your screen that represents a buoy. You have the square over on the right side there that represents a dumping ground. And you can see some of the aids to navigation or lights that are on the Don Young Port of Alaska there over on the farthest right side as well. All of this symbology you can learn about if you click on it in your electronic navigational chart, or we have something called chart number 1, which is a companion piece where you can go through and see what all the symbols mean. But as mariners, from kind of a new mariner to a more experienced mariner, the symbology is the same across the country, and so mariners learn to read these fairly quickly. There's also information in here about when the area was last surveyed. You can find some information about what if there's cables in the area, any hazardous rocks. So it's a really good way to safely navigate in an area. When we survey, it all eventually gets turned into this electronic navigational chart that I've shown you. But because we are a federal agency, because we are funded by the public, all of our data is publicly available, and you can find it on the National Center for Environmental Information, or NCEI's, bathymetric data viewer. What you're looking at here is Prince William Sound, and each of these pink to purple colored squares represent different surveys that the Office of Coast Survey has done. If it is a deeper, more vibrant color purple, it is a newer survey. If it is more of a pinkish color, it is an older survey. We have surveys on here from the early 1900s all the way up to present day. And when you click on that survey, you can get the raw data. You can get something for some of the newer surveys, something called a bathymetric attributed grid, or BAG, that can be opened in a GIS platform. And you also can get the descriptive report. This is a report that is written by the hydrographer that talks about the challenges that they came across when doing this survey, what interesting things they might have found, what the weather was like, what sonar they used, what technology was used at the time. They are very helpful. They're very interesting nowadays, but they were even more interesting when you dig back in there and read some of the descriptive reports from surveys done in the 1950s, and these surveyors that were using very, to us, old-fashioned survey methodology, pinpointing places on land and triangulating your location, no satellites, no GPS. And so you can really get a picture of just the frontiersmanship of the surveyors at the time. I also get asked a lot, a lot of these areas haven't been surveyed in a long time, the charts are wrong, et cetera, like we want a new survey. So if you want your area surveyed, I am the person to come to. My contact information will be at the end. I love to hear survey requests. We do have limited resources, and Alaska is 62% unmapped right now. So it is a Herculean task, but this right here is my live version of areas that I have been asked to map. Every time I get requests, I put them in here, and we're constantly working with our survey planners, with our survey team to figure out, with the budget that we are given by Congress and the president, what can we execute this year? And this is a big piece of how we make that decision. So red areas are areas that have been requested. Green areas are areas that were requested and then have since been surveyed. And so this all to say, please send me requests that you have. We really take requests from members of the public and requests, particularly from mariners, very seriously. And we are listening. This was our survey plan for 2025 in Prince William Sound. Unfortunately, due to the government shutdown, we were not able to execute as much as we would have liked. However, we do have plans to reoccupy this area and to hopefully get more of it done. But as you can see, we were able to survey a good amount of Port Wells, and then we also were able to survey all of the Port of Valdez there, as well as Valdez Glacier Lake. That was a very interesting project that was done via a government contract through our contractor, through a contractor eTrack that we worked with. And here you can see kind of that beautiful rainbow mosaic of what the bathymetry in Valdez looks like. Those charts are being updated as we speak. And we were able to survey, get a pretty complete survey, the most complete survey that had ever been done of Valdez Glacier Lake there. And that is a really neat product, and we've provided that to the city, and hopefully it can be made publicly available to everyone. I know the city, I believe, is working on that right now, but the port itself is publicly available now on our website, and the charts are in the process of being updated. So if you're interested in seeing these electronic navigational charts, they are all available to view online. You also, if you have like a chart plotter, a Garmin, if you have charting software like Rosepoint or Nobletech on your vessel, if you have an ECDIS, which is an electronic chart display information system, those are typically found on some of the bigger boats. That is all pulling and using NOAA's charts. All of those use as a base NOAA's charts, these surveys that we are doing. But if you want to play around with it on your computer, on your phone, nauticalcharts.noaa.gov is the place to do it. Not quite as optimized for the cell phone yet, but certainly well optimized for a computer browser. We are constantly updating these charts. Buoys get moved. We do new surveys. New cables get laid. And so if you're interested, like what has changed in my area in the last week, month, etc., we have this website here where you can see updates to those charts. And then we recognize that no longer having that beautiful paper chart is a loss. They are works of art. They were hand-drawn in many cases by cartographers in the past. And unfortunately, they just weren't being used by enough mariners anymore. And the level of effort that we required to update those and to maintain them was beyond what we could do. And so we moved to this electronic only product. However, we did create a NOAA custom chart tool. And this allows you to take what is essentially a screenshot of our electronic product and make it into a PDF that you can then print at whatever size you would like, a small piece of paper or a chart plotter like a poster printer. So if you're interested in playing around with this tool, you can still make a paper product. It is derived by a computer, so it doesn't look quite as nice as those that were hand-drawn by these beautiful artists in the past, but it is a product that can meet your need. But if you want to look back at some of our old historic charts, some of the old paper products dating all the way back to the 1800s, you can find all of those on our NOAA Historic Chart tool online. historiccharts.noaa.gov. It is really cool to look back and see how our understanding of the coastline, how our understanding of the seafloor has changed and gotten greater throughout the years. And again, these are works of art. And I just think it's very neat to go back and be able to see those. And for those of you who haven't heard of our Coast Pilot, it is a book, a written companion piece to these maps, to these nautical charts. And they are like the milepost guide. You can search for the area that you're in, and it will tell you if there's rocks there, if there's maybe a weird current that goes through there, if it's an area that's prone to high winds at certain times of the year. Is there a fish farm that's nearby? And so this is a really useful product if it's a place you haven't boated before and maybe want to get some information on. If you see something wrong with the chart, we have this assist tool that we encourage people to put questions, comments, report an error. Every single one of these is responded to. We take it very seriously because these are legal documents, these charts. And kind of one of my main messages that I share with every group that I talk to is if you use a chart plotter, know which chart plotter you use, know how often the chart plotter is pulling new updates to your chart, and know how you need to update your chart plotter. They don't all update automatically, and some people are navigating off of old, unupdated charts, and this could get them into trouble. As you all know, in Alaska, there's a lot of rocks here, and we want to make sure that you are using the most up-to-date information. We have a new product that's coming to Prince William Sound, hopefully in the next year. We call this Blue Topo. What it is it is a single digital elevation model of the ocean floor. So right now you have the charts that represent the ocean floor numerically, all the little number dots. You have these surveys that I showed you on the National Center for Environmental Information, but they're piecemeal all together like a quilt. And what we've done is we've taken all those quilt pieces and we've put them together into this seamless layer of topography. One, it looks super neat. Here, this is represented. This is a representation of an area in Southeast Alaska, but also it has a lot of uses for modeling. If you need to be able to see what will happen in a single basin and a single body of water, and so all of this can be explored on nowcoast.noaa.gov, and that single model of Prince William Sound should be releasing within the year. What this single digital elevation model will also allow us to do is have more of this real-time information for the mariners. So this is an example of New York, but because now we have this kind of electronic background to everything, what is happening here is you can see a ship that would be navigating in the channel on the left, and as the blue comes in, that's showing the tide rising and falling, and you getting more or less water underneath the ship. Because previously those numbers are static, right? And so it doesn't represent if the tide is maybe higher or lower, if the current has come in, as you can see in this page here. And so this will show you a lot more of this real-time information of what's happening on the water body you are navigating on. A couple of more things that I just wanted to point out that you can access from NOAA, from our agency. We also do all the tides and currents. And so tidesandcurrents.noaa.gov, one great place to find tides and currents. NowCoast, we have these new maritime weather zones that are new as of a couple of years ago, and they're meant to be more precise about defining the maritime weather in that area. So there's smaller, more precise maritime weather zones, really important if you're a small boater and need to understand if you're going to be in a hazardous weather environment on the water. And then tsunamis are are always a risk in Alaska. And so because NOAA also is responsible for the Tsunami Center and for tsunami preparedness and the warnings, I like to throw in here, make sure that you are a tsunami aware boater as well in these areas. So that's what I had today. That is my contact information. I'm happy to answer questions. One more thing I'll bring up is it was mentioned to me that there might be interest in this group talking about wildlife clusters and how bathymetry impacts them. And I'll just say that what we like to say, without knowing what is on the ocean floor, you cannot protect it or you cannot exploit it. And so if you are interested in taking a resource, if fishing, if you're interested in protecting an area, making it a sanctuary, none of those decisions can be made without knowing what the bathymetry is. And without understanding the bathymetry, you won't understand the way that the wildlife uses the ocean floor. We have a group I can put in the chat if people are interested. It's called Seascape Alaska. It is non-governmental. It's just people who are interested in seafloor mapping and characterization. And a big part of that is not only the mapping, but the characterization. When we know what is down, like when we know what the ocean floor looks like what is it then made of? What are the uses? And how is that affecting upwelling and the area at large? So that's a great group. And they're bringing a lot of data and communication to that sphere. So thank you for your time. I hope to see all of you in person one day soon, and happy to answer questions.
We're just pulling questions now, Caroline.
Yeah.
Long ago, when I first came to Alaska, I heard that a lot of the charts had soundings that were done by either Cook or
bearing. Sorry about that.
That was a sounding. I'm wondering if that's true, and when, if it was, when was the last of that data removed and modern bathymetry put in?
Yes, it's true. Yes, they are still on the charts, particularly up near and around the North Slope. You can find them if you'll see no soundings in the area and then just a single line of soundings, because he and his contemporaries would use the lead line. And so it's what you think it is, a piece of lead on a line. You drop it until there's mud and then you pull it up. Okay, it's 20 meters deep. Now we move slightly forward, we drop another line. So those usually are indicative of soundings either by Cook or his contemporaries. We're pulling most of that off the chart, so I believe there's probably not too much of it left. However, there was a ton of surveying done in the 1940s in conjunction with World War II, in conjunction with the Aleutian Islands being invaded. And so there is a lot of survey left on the charts in the Aleutian Islands on the North Slope from the 1940s time period. And that is a Herculean effort for us to very slowly update. Yes. Sorry, I neglected to put the link in there. If you just Google assist NOAA, it will come up. It's a website. You should be able to access it easily on your phone as well. And if you prefer, you're more than welcome to email me or give me a call as well. It all works its way to me eventually, either through Assist or through my email and phone. So either one of those work.
Any other questions in the room?
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks, Caroline.
Awesome.
Yeah. I did online, there was a question from somebody about where the National Data Buoy Center fit into this. And I'll just say that is under the National Weather Service, because a lot of the information the National Data, the buoys are pulling from is used by the National Weather Service. But of course, we recognize mariners use all of that information as well. So the National Data Buoy Center is housed underneath the National Weather Service.
Hotel, says question.
Caroline, there's a couple of buoys that have been, they're found out in the sound. Who does one call? Whether it be a weather buoy or, and it maybe a mooring, or not a mooring, but a navigational aid. Is that NOAA?
Yes, our National Data Buoy Center is technically based out of Mississippi. But I encourage everyone you can contact me and I will make sure that it goes to the right person. Because I know sometimes it's the Coast Guard, sometimes it's NOAA, sometimes they're private aids to navigation. And so the answer can get a little hooey. So I just encourage you to reach out to me and I can direct it as appropriate.
You get all the questions?
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Thank you so much, Caroline. We're going to say goodbye for now.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone.